Hello.
Hey there. How are you doing?
Good.
Jeremy.
Congratulations. And tell me a little about your character, Lawrence, how you found him and what you understood about him.
Well, on the surface, he's when we meet him, or in the bulk of the film, he's a missionary in the middle of an American missionary in the middle of the Brazilian Amazon,
right,
with a teenage daughter who everybody around believes is capable of performing miracles because she was the sole survivor of a plane crash. Lawrence, I worked very closely with Pia and worked in this environment. For me, there are a couple of competing forces at play, and one of them is this attempt to maintain this universe that has in a lot of ways saved him, right? And that his daughter, Rebecca, has also saved him, has given him a purpose in life in the face of incredible loss. And that this world is a bit of a fantasy world that he needs to hold together at all costs, and while there is a tremendous amount of love for his daughter, for Rebecca, and between the two of them, it always borders just on the edge of abuse and exploitation and a kind of manipulation, but with a higher purpose.
Right.
And so it's this constant balancing act, sort of moving back and forth between sort of higher purpose and most base instincts.
Not to be personal about your own religiosity, but what did you have to draw on as far as what his faith was? Because obviously he's a missionary.
Well, so half of my family are Baptist ministers.
Okay. Well, there you go.
So, and I grew up in Detroit, and and so half of my neighborhood were African Methodist Episcopalians. The other half were Nation of Islam. I have my father's parents are Sephardic Jews from Romania, and I'm in this mishmash of religion. So being able to move in between religions and sort of to pick whatever is either the most meaningful or the most performatively dramatic. It's all fair game. And then the other side of it is like, I don't consider myself a religious person. For as much religion as I've been surrounded by, and as much as I would hang out in the African Methodist Episcopalian and I would see God, as much as anybody in that room would feel the Holy Spirit enter, and that sort of thing, whatever I thought that was. I think being in the Amazon, being in the Brazilian Amazon, and being in French Guiana, in the middle of that place, the profundity of nature and the severity of nature and the sort of overwhelmingness of nature that will eat you, will tear you apart, will take you, if you were to fall down, you would dissolve within a day. Is a profoundly religious experience. It's sort of in the sense that it places me in context of the universe and the larger world, and it's humbling. It's profoundly humbling. And I think the other side of it is that we were working very closely with the Assurini Nation, who are associate producers on the film. That they really carried through, and we were in their home, and they would sort of lead us through this universe, half the time on TikTok and the other half of the time, making sure that a giant snake wouldn't bite us in the face, and that the relationship between nature and our actions was always present. They were completely contemporary and also completely connected to something that is older than human civilization.
Congratulations. Let's talk about your acting training. Yeah. What was the best piece of advice you ever got about being an actor, and how do you practice that in your various roles?
That's such an interesting question. I'm resisting being really glib and saying something like, the best piece of advice was don't do it. I think perhaps, so My training comes from my background is as a dancer.
Okay.
Right, and so it's physically embodied. So I begin with the body, and I have throughout my life. And I trained at the Actors Studio. I've trained in Europe. I worked in Europe as an actor and a dancer in a very different kind of universe than sort of the American traditions of acting. And all of that stuff, that mashup, all come to play. And I think that perhaps the advice, or I don't know if it was so much advice, but a little bit of focusing from a woman named Barbara Poitier, who I knew from the Actors Studio, is that Barbara is that you are always looking for something that touches you, that sparks something that's real. And then you ride that energy within the constraints or the construct of another person, and that there's a liberation that you can feel. There's a true liberation in being yourself through the guise of somebody else in other conditions, and it's that weird paradox of both being absolutely present with yourself and being absolutely present with this fiction that is created by given circumstances, and that you are constantly moving back and forth between those two is, I think, for me, is at the core of the art form for me.
This is Patrick McDonald for HollywoodChicago.com. Copyright 2024.